Good evening. It is Tuesday, April 15th, 2025 at 6 o'clock p.m., and I'd like to call to order the Town of Sutton Select Board meeting and invite you all to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting is in hybrid format, so pursuant to Governor Healy's March 28, 2025 order extending the temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law until June 30th, 2027, the meeting of the Sutton Select Board is in hybrid format and is being recorded. All meeting recordings will be made available after proceedings on the town's website and YouTube channel. Meeting, YouTube, and Zoom links can be found at www.suttonma.org/cable-department. And because we're in hybrid format, we need to declare we're here in person.
Jess Lemanik, physically present.
Jonathan Anderson in person.
Jeff Bannon in person.
Norman Champagny in person.
And David Hall in person. Thank you. All right, so first up tonight, we will have public forum. Public forum is limited to 5 minutes per topic. Discussion or comments about town employees or agency members shall be avoided so as not to violate individuals' rights. Is there anyone here for public forum? I don't see anybody. Is there anybody on Zoom for public forum? Doesn't look like it. All right, so we will move on. We have a series of minutes to approve.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to accept as presented the March 31st, 2025 Select Board meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Jess Lemanik, aye.
Jonathan Anderson, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
Norman Champagny, aye.
David Hall, aye. Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to make a motion to accept as presented the April 1st, 2025 Select Board meeting minutes.
Second.
Also a motion and a second.
Jess Lemanik, aye.
Jonathan Anderson, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
Norman Champagny, aye.
David Hall, aye. Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I would also like to make a motion to accept as presented the April 1st, 2025 executive session meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Jess Lemanik, aye.
Jonathan Anderson, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
Norman Champagny, aye.
David Hall, aye. That passes unanimously.
And last but not least, because apparently we had a busy week, motion to accept as presented the April 2nd, 2025 Select Board meeting
Second.
minutes.
That's a motion and a second.
Jess Lemanik, aye.
Jonathan Anderson, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
Norman Champagny, aye.
And David Hall, aye. That passes unanimously. Phew. It's a full meeting right there.
I'm
All
ready
right.
to go home.
Next up, we have an Arbor Day proclamation. I'd like to invite the clerk to read the proclamation into the record.
All right, Arbor Day Proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore, he, David Hall, Chair of the Select Board in the Town of Sutton, does hereby proclaim April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day. In the Town of Sutton, Massachusetts, I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Dated this 15th day of April in the year 2025 by David Hall, Chair of the Select Board.
Thank you, sir. Any comments? All right, great.
Go trees.
Go trees.
It
I like
sounds
it.
like trees are better than solar boards, solar panels, right? So.
I just want to thank Mr. Morton for his vision 150 years ago. All right, I think that's good. We can move on to a public hearing for a poll hearing for Burbank Road. I'll declare the public hearing open and invite the clerk to read the notice.
All right, Town of Sutton Select Board Public Hearing Notice as posted in the March 27, 2025 Millbury Sutton Chronicle. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22, you are hereby notified that a public hearing will be held at 6:05 p.m. on Tuesday, April 15th, 2025, in the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Uxbridge Road, Sutton, upon petition from N-Grid and Verizon New England for permission to locate one JO pole on Burbank Road, beginning at a point approximately 1,430 feet southeast of the center line of the intersection of Sibley Road and continuing approximately 20 feet in a westerly direction. N-Grid is installing one 35 Class 3 pole, P-85-84, to take the place of a tree guy. Also for permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. Petitioner agrees to reserve space for one cross arm at a suitable point on said poles for fire, police, telephone, and telegraph signal wires belonging to the municipality and used for municipal exclusive purposes. This will be a hybrid meeting with an in-person and Zoom option. To join with Zoom, please use meeting ID 842-4262-7746, passcode 255008, plan file herewith marked number 31080907.
Well done, thank you. Jim, I don't know if you have any preamble?
Yeah, just my understanding is this is just a new pole to replace a tree guy. You know, I don't know whether the tree's been taken down or there's the regular maintenance that they're doing, but there's a representative on Zoom for Stephanie.
Stephanie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh,
Sean, maybe?
No.
No.
not Sean. So nobody's here.
Nobody's here from
Is there
National
anybody
Grid?
here from National Grid?
No, I guess not. Stephanie
All right.
threw me for a loop.
So this is a public hearing, so is there anybody here that would like to speak on this issue? Come on up.
Sorry, I just was unclear of the exact location of the pole. I
You
saw
do
the...
sit down,
I'm gonna sit-
give your name, your address for the record.
Thank you. My name's Jeff Barnes. I live at 37 Burbank Road. I received the piece of mail that let me know there was a hearing about it tonight, and it just was relatively unclear as to the exact location, so.
I think there's a tree guy, and that's the new pole that's being installed
Okay.
to remove that.
This answers my questions,
Okay.
so thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
And Jim, do we have any public safety?
No, police, fire, and highway signed off on it. Again, it's just taking care of a maintenance situation where they used to put these guys in trees, but then that's an old practice. And whenever they get the chance, they try to replace them.
Okay. Well, normally we would have somebody here from National Grid to talk about this. So, leave it up to the board, I guess, to figure out where we want to go with this. Doesn't really seem to me like it's a problem, but
Yeah, I mean, the tree guy, if memory serves me correctly, that's the steel cable that they used to prop up these trees with, and if there's no tree, to have a tree guide, kind of makes sense to put a new pole in. And if police, fire, highway signed off on this, I don't really see any issues.
Jonathan?
I don't see any issues. This is pretty straightforward.
No issues with me.
Mr. Chairman, no issues, normal procedures, I'm fine.
Okay. All right, I would prefer to have National Grid here, but without that, I guess I feel the same way. So with that, is anybody else in the public that would like to speak to this? Then I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to close public hearing.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Take a vote.
Jesse Lamanica.
Jonathan Anderson, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
Norman Shopping, aye.
David Hall, aye. Declare the public hearing portion of this closed, and then I think we have
Yep.
another motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve poll hearing number 310-80907 from National Grid and Verizon for Burbank Road as advertised in the March 27, 2025 Millbury Sutton Chronicle.
I'll second that as well.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll take a vote.
Jesse LaManica, aye.
Jonathan Harrison, aye.
Jeff Payne and I.
Norman Shopping, aye.
David Hall, aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, next up, we have an amendment to the IMA for the Charlton Coalition for Public Health Collaborative. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the first amendment. The board signed this just a few months ago in November. And what we're doing is simply adding the town of East Brookfield to this collaborative. The town of Charlton will continue to serve as the lead entity with Spencer, Sturbridge, East Brookfield, and Wales, as well as the town of Sutton participating. Again, it's a revolving 3-year grant. The original grant 2 years ago was in the amount of $300,000. We do get a regional health inspector that is shared between the, I guess now, 5 communities. But it's a benefit. It's, in my opinion, not a lot of risk. We can get out of it very quickly by just notifying the coalition that we're no longer interested in participating. But it's a way to get some extra help for the Board of Health here in the town of Sutton.
And Cheryl is here. I don't know, Cheryl, if you wanted to add anything or if there's any questions from the board. So-
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. How are you? If you can just tell us who you are, we'd appreciate it.
Cheryl Rowinski, Public Health Nurse and Health Director for the Town of Sutton, the Board of Health.
Is there anything you'd like to add to what Jim just had to say?
Not really. It's just a very small community. The Town of East Brookfield has like less than 3,000 people. They don't have a lot of a need, but it's just a little asset, and there is extra funding within our collaborative to support them.
Yeah. Okay. So if you mind hanging out for a sec, we'll just see if the board has any questions.
Hi, Cheryl. How are you tonight?
Fine, Jesse.
Oh, good. Excellent. I have 2 very simple questions. So, again, we don't have the full contract in here that we had last time, but if memory serves me correctly, each of the towns were given an opportunity to have a representative that essentially would be the governing board
Correct.
of this collaborative. So now we have an even number of towns, because we're going from 5 to 6. Is there going to be a representative that's going to be chosen the chair, or is it kind of like informal meetings?
They're informal meetings, but the host agency is the Town of Charlton, so they're the ones that makes basically...
So they'd be the presiding officer or representative. Okay, good. And by adding this extra town, is there any opportunity to add to the amount of the total award?
We had extra funding from the state to
Okay.
provide services for that community.
Yeah, but what I'm wondering is if there's an extra town in, does that mean this collaborative potentially could be due additional funds
We did get additional funds
in lieu of or in advance of their
in
joining?
advance.
Perfect. So if for some reason a 7th town was to join, would that cycle repeat?
I don't think there are any other towns that need to be within a coalition. That was a
Special
town
circumstance?
that was just hanging out there that was not part of a coalition. And they agreed to come in with us because we were the smaller of the coalitions in that area.
Okay, perfect. That's really all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome.
Jonathan?
Thank you. Hi, Cheryl.
How you doing, Jonathan?
Good. Just one quick question. As regards to the regional health inspector, have you actually hired one already, or?
There's been one hired for the past year
Okay.
within the coalition. At present, we haven't needed to utilize this person within our community, but is available for any need at any time.
Okay, and what's their role? Like, they go around to different...
Same, more or less, basically what I do, in case if I just don't have the capacity to do anything, they can come in and do inspections to help out with other resources and also other duties within the Board of Health office.
Okay, so we haven't needed them at this point? No?
Not right now.
Okay. I think, adding East Brookfield is, it's a small community. It doesn't really have, add a whole lot more, reasons, they could, use it. The one question I have, I guess, going back to, and I don't know if you were here at the last meeting, but we're kind of, it seems like we're part of a coalition that's out towards a little further west than here. Is there any reason why that ended up that way, or like versus it being towns around us? Or that doesn't matter?
It doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. I know the other coalition that is in the Blackstone area, they had several communities, and quite honestly, I thought that the coalition that we are in right now with Charlton, even though it's further west, is a better fit for the town of Sutton.
Okay, just the same, similar sized towns and everything, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a problem with adding this town. I mean, I think my biggest concern is just, I still worry about DPH, Department of Public Health, and, like, after last time we discussed this, the next day they passed the Safe 2.0 bill, like, in the middle of the night, like, as part of another bill, and I just don't like those kind of tactics, so I kind of worry about these kind of things overall, but as far as this goes, I think it makes sense for us right now, but I think we're going to have to continue to monitor that. And I know there's a couple bills out there right now that really make me nervous, especially some around parental consent and, the rights of parents to be able to, see, for children to make decisions on their own and for parents to see, their health records and all that. Those are bills that aren't part of DPH, but they'll give the DPH that kind of power. So those are things we have to kind of monitor as part of this that concern me. But as far as today goes, I'm fine with adding East Brookfield, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Very good, thank you, Jonathan. Jeff?
I have no questions or issues with the adding East Brookfield, so
Thank you.
good to go.
Very good, thank you. Norman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for your all years of service, much appreciated. When this came to a vote, keep in mind, last November, I believe, or last October, last fall, I did review the contract. I do know there's outs on that, but I was only the vote that voted no, because for the I vote on principle, is that my concern is that incremental gradualism of approach of sense of a loss of locality in a sense. It's just step by step. And to extrapolate what John was saying with SAF, which is the State Action for Public Health Excellence, it always looks nice and pretty. I do have a healthcare background experience in the industry, so I can see where this is going. And whereas the fact that SAF 2.0 is, there's a very broad language, extremely broad language, where I can say I could define any type of vaccine that we have to take without the knowledge of testing or a disease control. So it's too much of broad language, and that's coming little by little. I know that Ryan Fatman was a sole dissenter. He was the only one that did not vote for SAF 2.0, I think earlier this year, that passed, because it's really key. And again, monitor what's going on, and we see, and I know what we were extrapolating here, but is that incremental means of going into reach of a locality. And is that now with the parental rights bill, whereas, a 12-year-old can make their own medical decisions, right? That is too far reaching, right? So, but again, there's an out in this contract, and that's fine, right? So I think it was 90 days.
30 days.
30 days, okay, thank you. Stand corrected. But no, listen, you do great service. It's a good benefit of town, but I am just eyes of caution on the dashboard, where this is going. But again, Mr. Chairman, that is it. Thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you. Just a quick question, Cheryl. Do the other towns, as part of this collaborative, do they also have town nurses of their own on their staff?
Some do.
Some do, some don't. And since we do, is this really just a service for us that is kind of like a backup?
It is.
Is that really all that we do with it?
Yes,
So if we need help, they're there. So,
that's all.
and hang on one second, but yes.
Yeah.
We once had a number of IMAs with various towns where we were sort of like farming your services out to help out, and I think we've cut that down significantly.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. But that does seem like an opportunity or a place where you might just get still spread a little bit thin, and we might need this service.
Right now, they have their nurses, and as well as there's a new regional nursing coordinator for public health in our region, and she had just come on board. She is not affiliated with DPH. She is from UMass, and she is trying to recruit more public health nurses, so she's in the field in our area because she knows there's a huge gap in public health nursing in the field. So she's trying to recruit and retain a lot of public health nurses for the remaining nurses that are on their way out to retire.
And how would you foresee us using this service as it's constructed today? Is it just if you're on vacation, or,
There are nurses that can cover for me,
Yeah. Okay.
or I usually do it myself if I'm around. It doesn't
Yeah.
really matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is always backup. And I always have 2 people behind me in case I'm ever out, and they always know what's going on, the patients, things like that.
Okay. You're happy we're in this?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Question?
I just had one question, the reverse of pretty much what you just said. Could there ever be a situation where, because we're in the collaborative, you could be called upon to go and give support to other towns that are in the collaborative? Or is this solely just backup for the nurses that are in place?
It's only backup, but the other communities have nurses. But also, the town of Sutton has an IMA for public health within the 74 communities within Region 2. So we are all, if needed, we would go to
So
help
you would
any other
respond,
community.
but that's not necessarily part
Correct.
of this agreement?
Correct.
All right. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, so to that point, it's not dissimilar to like the police, the fire
Exactly.
services.
Correct.
You have that, it's just shared.
We all have
throughout the
that.
whole thing. Yeah. So, okay. I think that's really all I had, so all things being equal, I'm fine. Everything you heard from my colleagues makes sense to me, so. Any other questions? Thank you, Cheryl, appreciate it. And I think we have,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the Select Board Chair to sign the amendment for Charlton Coalition for Public Health Collaborative.
Second?
motion and a second, I'll take a vote. Any further comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Jesse Lemanik, aye.
Jonathan Harrison, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
Norman Shopping, aye.
David Hall, aye. Passes 5-0.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Cheryl.
Nice show, thank you.
All right, next up, we have a bike race. A Minuteman Road Club bike race scheduled for June 14th, 2025. Jim, I don't know if
Dave,
you...
come on.
Everything you want to start?
Sure, I'll introduce it. Mr. David Kerouac, representing the Minuteman Road Club, will be in attendance. They would like to sponsor a race through the town on June 14th, 2025. This is the day before Father's Day. We've had issues in the past when it happened on Father's Day, people coming in from out of town. They only know how to go one way because those are the directions that were given to them. So they did decide to hold this on a Saturday, which is better. 10 years ago, Purgatory Road Race held a similar event on the similar roads. The cyclists will go off in waves, 50 riders per wave, and well coordinated. They have coordinated details through Sergeant Fortunato in the police department. They have worked with the Early Learning Center, getting parking and a kind of a coordinating area to start the race. We did discuss a donation to the Mike Chizzy Food Pantry, and there is a map of the cycling race attached, and I'll turn it over to you folks to...
Sure, and I'll start. I'm Don Kerouac. I'm at 17 West Millbury Road in Sutton. I'm a member at large in the Minuteman Road Club, and I do remember this race, when I first moved to Sutton, as being something that kind of brought some of the community together. I don't know as many people in Sutton that ride, but there are still several. And this event is really aimed at getting people out on their bikes, staying interested in cycling. The sport isn't as popular as it once was, so we're trying to make an effort to put an event on. It's not for profit. It's strictly to build interest, to get people out on their bikes. I don't know. And then this is Dave. Go ahead.
Dave Mingori. I'm the president of Minuteman Road Club. Have to admit I live in Worcester, but please don't hold that against me. I've raced the prior version multiple times. Aware of good parts and bad and not so good parts. I've also directed a very similar type race in Harvard, Massachusetts for the past 10 years. We just had a number of calendar conflicts, and that is not being held this year. This is all in conjunction with USA Cycling. And as I said, I'm very familiar with the rules, the regulations. I have insurance certificates. As Mr. Smith noted, both Don and I have met with Sergeant Fortunato. We are on board or in agreement with the police details that will be covered, at what intersections, intersections will also be monitored with the police, with additional volunteer marshals. And yes, we are prepared to provide a $1,000 donation to the food pantry, in addition to requesting donations of canned goods. So,
From the participants, yeah.
from the participants,
Yeah.
right?
Great. Thank you very much. So as you've been witnessing, we'll open it up to the board if
Yes.
we could.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Dave and Don. How you guys doing tonight?
Jesse?
Well, thanks.
Thank you for coming before us. Is this a different race than the race that has been running this route?
Yeah, it's a different organization. So in the
Different
past, it
organization.
was Green Line Velo, MIT Cycling. We're not affiliated with them, but we are aware of the history and the problems that occurred at the Simonian Center. And to be honest, when we talked among our board members, we were appalled to hear that had occurred. I mean, it's not typical behavior for cyclists. We're usually very respectful. We understand, the town is kind of doing us a favor by letting us, have a race. I can't imagine anybody going in and, causing damage or stealing stuff. So that's not, what we're about. We'll make sure that doesn't happen. But yeah, we're in no way affiliated with those folks.
Okay, yeah, I apologize, because when I first went through the packet, I'm like,
Totally
it's
totally
that race
understand.
again, but new group. Good, well, excellent. Hey, you know something? We welcome activities like this in town, as both of you know, and so having a new event, this is something that's wonderful, and obviously I hope it goes well, and this can become an annual event. That would definitely be a positive. The only issues from years past that made it to us relatively quickly was concern, obviously, about the residents on the route. As mentioned, driving the one way, not getting the notice. Are you guys working to contact the residents along the route, just to kind of give them the heads up?
We already let Jim know, so he's notified. But yes, we definitely plan to let all the residents know along the route. We also are hoping to make use of the Department of Public Works has a sign in the center of Sutton, and we can kind of alert everybody in town, on the 12th, there'll be an event, so they'll, won't be, totally caught off guard. But yes, for sure, all the residents will try to put something on their mailbox or, make sure that they're notified.
Yeah, because again, I'll be honest with you, that's really only negative that I remember hearing. There was just concern over that. But yeah, as long as you're going to communicate that the event's coming, I'm sure the impact is going to be minor. The only other thing that came to mind is I am aware that on the 14th, I'm pretty sure that's the tentative date for the townwide yard sale. So you might want to really emphasize that to the houses along the route, that maybe they want to look for another location if they're going to participate in that event.
Okay.
Because I would hate to have people trying to go to a yard sale as the bikes
Yeah,
are
that
going by.
would be, yes, that would be tough.
But on that,
Go to that.
I hope everything goes well. I hope you have
Thank you.
perfect weather for it. And I'm sure I can see the chief in the background. I'm sure he'll keep you all in check. That's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Jonathan?
Thank you, Dave, and thank you for coming here today. And as always, we do support these type of events. We have them quite often here in town, so it's exciting to see these continuing to evolve, and welcome to, with your event. I've really not heard too many issues in the past with these type of events, so I'm not really that concerned about it. I think the only question I have is, did you get any report from Sergeant Fortunato as far as anything?
No, everything, he had all they've agreed to all the details that have been requested, and there's no issues with anything.
Okay, yeah, that's good enough for me, so I think I'm all set. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are you going to race?
I am not going to race, no.
Just wondering. Thank you, gentlemen, for this. I think it's a great event to hold. Just a couple of questions. I couldn't quite figure out the mileage here of the whole route. How long is the race?
The race is from the Early Learning Center to Central Turnpike is 1.3 miles, which is what's called a neutral start. That is not part of the actual, but we have to get to a safer area. That is, a neutral start is controlled by motos and a lead follow vehicle at speeds not to exceed 15 to 18 miles per hour. Once they make the left turn onto Central Turnpike, the loop is as described on page 2, and that that base loop is 10.3 miles.
Okay.
Fields will do the first wave of racers, which goes off at 8:30, will do up to 4 laps. The second wave, which starts at 8:30.
4 10-mile laps.
4 10-mile laps, correct. The second wave, the longest one, will do 5 10-mile laps. Once the finish will be, what'd you say, about 100 yards?
100 yards past.
The entrance to the Blackstone Golf Course. There's a little pond on their area where officials can be set up completely off the road. That's the end of the race on their final lap. Once they cross the finish line, they are now subject to the rules of the road getting back to the school. And we'll have awards and so forth back.
All right, so you have a lead vehicle,
Right, we
a
have,
police vehicle, it's just a,
correct, it's a lead vehicle. There'll actually be a moto official, a lead vehicle, a follow vehicle, and an EMT vehicle.
with each wave?
With each, actually, and there'll be multiple per wave.
Okay.
And the lead and follow vehicle will have flashers on, they have, and all these vehicles are connected with radios. We have Battenberg USA is the organization that, they do races all over the country, organizing communications. Our volunteer marshals also have handheld radios that are linked in with the race vehicles.
Okay, and what time, it's going to wrap up somewhere around 5 o'clock or so?
We'll be, the racing will be done well before that. We just, was it Diane? And, yeah, we have the
Simonian Center until-
available until 5 o'clock.
Yeah, we'll be finished before
But-
then. I also want to mention that all the drivers have had
Good point.
a background check through USA Cycling, so they check, for any DUIs, make sure they're safe, licensed drivers, they have insurance. So the drivers are folks that, we can trust. They're not just some person that we ask to drive in a car to follow.
I think Don's even driven in the
Yeah,
past.
I've even done it in the past. And then as Dave mentioned, there's a motorcycle that's kind of accompanying the main group that's just kind of watching for oncoming cars, if a car's coming up behind. So they're really kind of paying attention to the whole thing. They're kind of, the quarterback, so to speak, of what's happening. And all of the cars are in communication. If there's a crash, if there's any kind of problems, everybody gets notified. So it's very well communicated and organized throughout.
Great, okay, great, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Very good.
Good luck with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Norman?
I think it was Chairman. No, I think a lot of questions and assumptions were addressed. I only have one question, maybe ridiculous, but I didn't do a road race in a very long time. Questions, do you have a dedicated mechanic in the event if something fails or flat tire, there's a rescue, or do they have their
Yeah, there's a
own?
neutral, so I don't know if we have neutral support
We do,
this year,
yes.
but yeah, there's, so we'll have, is it Comp Ed?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
two vehicles.
So there is a car that has kind of neutral, wheels. I don't know if they have a full bike
They have a
and tools,
toolkit.
and so they can kind of assist folks that they
Okay,
get
good.
flats and so forth. And then I think they also set up at the school in the parking lot, they'll be there to help people if they need help with their bikes, if they discover they have a
Shouldn't
flat
have
before the
beforehand.
race. Yeah, beforehand. So,
No, very good. Thank you. It's like a medal to me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for stopping by.
thank you.
One other, it's a request. So as Sergeant Fortunato informed us, a portion, if not all, of Putnam Hill Road falls under Mass DOT. We have a permit in process with them. One of their requirements is that if the board is in agreement, that we have an event notification that a board member must sign that I need to provide to Mass DOT.
Okay.
And
we can do
I
that.
have that available if,
It's in the motions.
So I have a few questions, if I could. So how did you end up here on this route this year? If your group
Well,
has not done
this is a race that we knew was no longer taking place. It's one that we, both of us had done in the past and liked. I'd like to see it come back to Sutton, so it was just kind of because the Harvard event wasn't happening because of the calendar conflicts, we thought this was the perfect, place, since we kind of, had done a race here before, we knew the route. And we thought
both
that.
ride
We ride
very
here all the
regularly
time.
out this
But we
way.
thought the town would support it, just given that there isn't another race or anything taking place this year here.
So you have waves of 50 riders going off.
Approximately. It depends on registration, so we won't know until we have people register for the
Sure.
event. Right now, we don't, we're not even able to tell anybody there's an event until we have approval. But yeah, approximately 50, sure.
And when they start, are they similar in skill? I mean,
Yes.
are they going to ride bunched up in groups of 50, or are they going to kind of end
They
up?
will spread out. They're categorized by ability or by age. So all the riders will either have a USA Cycling license or a one-day insurance license. All the riders are covered under USA Cycling insurance. We also have liability to cover the town, the Minuteman Road Club, myself as director. But yes, to answer your question, the categories are, for example, category 4 and 5 are less experienced. Categories 1 and 2 are the more hardcore. They've been racing a long time. They know what they're doing. Kind of. Not that others don't, but and a faster pace.
And how much time between waves?
So the first wave, we stagger starts at 8:30, and then small groups go off every 2 or 3 minutes. Then we'll have the second wave, we get all that cleared up, awards, and then the second wave will start at 11:30.
Oh, okay, I see. And so talk about road conditions while one of these waves is sort of out on the road. I mean, are we closing down roads, or are we just kind of protecting them with the cars?
It's technically what's called a rolling enclosure. It's protecting the riders from cars, and the riders are protected by the designated between the lead vehicle and the follow vehicle. If they're in between those, the moto official works to hold traffic. When safe, will allow traffic to pass. But if there's anybody that is outside of the enclosure, they are part of the race, but they have to stay subject to the rules of the road.
Yeah. So that means two-way traffic we're talking about here.
Two-way yes.
Two-way car traffic is still...
The potential exception we will discuss further with Sergeant Fortunato is the one-way of the descent of Mendon Road, mainly because of the speeds and the narrowness of the road.
And there's no center line.
And there's no
line on Mendon Road either, so you can't tell, where's the middle. As a rider, you can't see.
And Don brings up a good point. Center line rule, Central Turnpike, Putnam Hill Road have obvious designated center lines. The moto official monitors that. Riders who try to advance to the left of the yellow line risk disqualification. Best case is they get relegated. The moto pulls up alongside them, they get talked to, and they said, you go to the back.
Yeah.
Repeat offender, disqualified. So there is little to no tolerance for that.
Okay. So if you live along the route, then, if it's even the right word, the disruption is really sort of limited to a short window of time as
Correct.
as the
Yeah,
traffic's gotta
probably,
come by.
a minute or two at maximum, as long as people are looking as they back out of their driveways as they normally would. And it's funny, in Harvard, that isn't always the case. We found when we did the races there, people just pull up, like, for some reason, just think that they can just back out of their driveway and not look. So we had a few situations there in the past. But we know the folks of Sutton will at least look as they back out of their drive. We hope.
So
Fingers
it's a good
crossed.
idea. It's a good idea. Well,
That section from Uxbridge to Barnett is pretty lightly populated with residences.
Right, correct.
So, I'm going to defer to Joe to determine how that would work.
That's true. On the right side, it's just the Sutton Town Forest
Yes.
with the mountain bike, waterworks area. So it's really the left where there's, the houses.
My concern, first and foremost, as race director, is to the safety of the participants. I want to do whatever is possible to mitigate as much as possible. You can never eliminate all risk other than just not showing up. But that's, I've been doing this long enough that I have a good idea of what steps need to be taken, and that's why the ask about the Mendon Road.
Making it one way.
Right. I know how fast, and the other thing is vehicles do tend to underestimate the speed that cyclists can be traveling downhill.
Yeah,
And
Mendon Road and Barnett, in that direction, you can go
Right.
pretty fast, so.
Right.
But, okay, well, listen, first of all, we all appreciate that you came out. It sounds like your experience running these races is pretty deep, and we, it sounds like we wish you well. I think that seems pretty unanimous around the board.
Thank you very
so
much.
Thank you.
Good luck with the race.
Maybe ideal to, on the day of and the day before, to just post on a Sutton site and Facebook, this is a warning, heads up, there's cyclists on these roads, so.
We can all get on bikes and run and ride the route the day before.
Yeah, there you go.
I nominate you.
Anything either of us can do to coordinate with whomever, prior, I want to be as transparent and as helpful as possible. That's-
And one other thing too, just I'll mention, I know as part of the prep work for the course, we'll go down and to all the kind of the right-hand turns, and we'll either sweep or bring a blower and just try to blow any gravel and stuff out of turns, because that's, again, rider safety. So we're going to go and try to clean up, the turns as well ahead of time, probably, Friday or even Thursday. If we
And do you
can.
mark the roadways at all for the?
We do. If there's potholes, we'll probably try to put some, paint around potholes or
Water soluble, we use
Yeah.
water soluble paint.
Yeah, no graffiti. But yes, we will try to mark any bad spots. There is a spot that's just past the entrance to that, on Mendon Road to the Sutton Waterworks hiking area. Just past that, there's a rough spot that we'll probably mark if the town's not able to patch it up ahead of time.
Okay. All right. Well, I wish you luck. So, we have a motion for this, so.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, if I may. Motion to approve the Minuteman Road Club cycling race to be held on Saturday, June 14th, 2025, between the hours of 8 p.m. and 5 p.m. with detailed police officers and EMS. Road signage and all insurance riders on file with town managers, office prior to the event, and authorize the select board chair signed a Mass DOT event notification form.
Second.
Motion in a second. Any further questions? Take a vote.
Jess Lemanik, aye.
Jonathan Harrison, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
Norman Shopping, aye.
David Hall, aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. And if there's a form to sign, then. We good with that, Deb? Can I just go ahead and sign that?
If you want, you can talk to Christine. She'll set up the Facebook and the social media, so we'll let everybody know. So,
Could you have the chief sign it?
I think Joe's already submitted to them.
Oh, did he?
John, he's neighbors with Cindy. And TA King and Cindy? He's neighbors right next to us. That yellow house.
Jesse.
Oh, the one.
sorry about the
I second.
mix-up.
That's okay.
Oh, well, finally.
I work part-time for
This-
National
this-
Grid on weekends. I'm just kidding.
National Grid's a nice professional.
I know exactly where they're at.
Yeah.
I don't know. I second.
You did.
All right.
All right, next up, I'll wait for Deb. Hang on.
Might want to move, too.
Oh, we got pictures too? We got a slideshow?
Yes.
I'll move. All right, before I do that, though, next up, we have the most exciting agenda item in the whole year, our annual audit of our financials, this year by Clifton Larson and Allen, and I assume you'll give us a little bit of background about that, but I'll turn it over to Tim. You want to talk at all, or?
Yeah, just briefly, we had, as you know, we had a change in auditors this year. Solicited a request for quotes from a bunch of firms, and we selected CLA. And it was a nice change from some of the audits we've had since COVID. It's been, as far as the participation at the town hall by audit staff has been pretty lean since COVID. And Stephanie with her crew, they were here a lot. And so it was really a nice change. They really dug in deep. They, in my opinion, did a much more thorough job than has been done in the past few years. Really made me work, which is fine. But I will turn it over to Stephanie Jackson, and she can tell you about the firm a little bit and how the audit went.
Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I was the manager on the engagement. The principal was unable to make it tonight. She is on PTO, so she does send her regrets. But I've been with the firm for about 6 years. I specialize in state and local government. It is all I do year-round. And so we have a practice. We do have an office in Worcester. I am based out of the Boston office, though. So yeah.
Okay.
Would you like me to share my...
Go ahead, I'll get out of the way.
Sure. No, you're fine.
It might be better if you move to the side.
Probably, I
and-
think, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, no. I think I did it wrong. Guess it's not going to let me share it in the preview mode, but hopefully this will be okay. So I tried this from the beginning. I did this, but it looks like it's staying. That's okay. It's okay. Sorry. I think it's because I can't do the entire. There you go. Oh, there it goes. Oh, third time's a charm. So in terms of what we were engaged to do, we'll talk about the audit scope. That will cover that, and then I will talk about the audit opinions as well as the governance communications that are required under auditing standards, as well as give some financial statement highlights, and then just bring to your attention the upcoming GASB standards that would be impacting the next couple of fiscal years. So in terms of what we were engaged to do, we were engaged to report on the town's financial statements, as well as issue a GAO report, which is the Yellow Book report. We also were engaged to communicate to you all of the required communications with governance, as well as an internal control report over the major programs with respect to the federal awards. For the financial statement audit as well as the federal award audit, we issued an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that can be issued. It is clean, meaning that we did not find anything that needed to be reported as a finding. And in terms of the audit results, in both the financial statement and the federal award audits, we did not note any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. For the required governance communications, the overall communications regarding the significant accounting policies, those are disclosed in Note 1 to the financial statements. There were no new GASB implementations that impacted the financial statements. GASB 100 was effective in the current year, but did not have an impact on the financial statements. There were no significant or unusual transactions identified to us or discovered during the audit process. And to the best of our knowledge, there was no consultations with other accountants during the audit process. We did not incur any difficulties or disagreements with management during the audit process. And the significant estimate noted in the financial statements was the net OPEB liability. Other things that came to the attention during our audit process was one adjustment related to the summer teacher's pay accrual. as well as 2 past adjustments, which were not recorded to the financial statements, but did not have a material impact on the financial statements or would mislead the users in any way for not being reported. And that included the opioid settlement receivable of approximately $262,000, as well as a 2023 understatement of the billing, which of approximately $116,000. Some of the financial statement highlights that we'll go over, both the government-wide fund balances and net position, as well as the general fund, and then also some fluctuations in some of the larger liabilities that are held by the town, including debt, OPEB, and pension. I know that you all received copies of the financial statement, so I will not take the time to read all of these numbers to you. I think what's most important here is what these numbers state is the financial health of the town itself. I think the most telling numbers that are on here is that the change in net position is moving in a positive direction, both in fiscal 23 and fiscal 24, almost tripling in fiscal 24, in both the governmental activities as well as the business type activities. Of that $3.4 million increase that you see in change in net position year over year, approximately $1 million of that is due to the general fund. The major components of the general fund, with the committed amounts for the stabilization funds being the majority of it, as well as the unassigned, again, made up of the general stabilization fund. Those are going to be your major components of the general fund. Again, the change in the fund balance is a positive increase of approximately $1 million, which again is highlighting the financial health of the town. Some of the long-term liability changes that were noted throughout the year include the decrease in outstanding debt of approximately $2.7 million. This is due to payments down on the debt. There was no new debt that was issued during the year. The OPEB liability decreased approximately $800,000 or $779,000 from last year, and this is based on a valuation performed as of July 1st, 2022, which has been rolled forward to the June 30th, 2024 measurement date. The pension liability did increase, and I know that this is usually you would expect these to move in the same direction. However, the pension liability has a 12/31 measurement date, and those 6 months of environmental and economic impact can definitely impact the changes in the liability. So this did increase approximately $1.8 million, and the town is approximately 2% of the Worcester Regional Retirement System, which it participates in. This is a slight increase over last year's 1.92%. Also, in addition to the financial statement highlights, before I move on, I know I skipped to the next slide, but I did want to state that the CFA, the single audit report for the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, there was approximately $1.7 million in expenditures this year. Of that, there was approximately $746,000 that were related to the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery fund, which was the major program that was audited under the single audit, over which there was no findings. In terms of GASB standards that are upcoming in the next couple of fiscal years, GASB 101 will be effective for fiscal year 25. This introduces the concept of more likely than not for compensated absences, which makes it now an estimate. And it sort of expands on what is included in your compensated absences. One of the biggest changes will be that parental leave, that once it's known, it does need to be estimated and included in the liability. At this time, primarily this will be impacting disclosures, but we will work with management during our planning for the fiscal 25 audit to make sure that all the relevant disclosures are being implemented for the financial statements. GASB 102 is also effective for fiscal year '25. This is disclosure related, and it does introduce the concept that if there's a significant concentration or constraint, that it does need to be disclosed. We don't anticipate that there will be a significant impact to the town's financial statement disclosures, but we will again work with management closely to ensure that the GASB Statement 102 is properly implemented. In fiscal '25, GASB 103 will be effective. This is also disclosure-based, and it will primarily, for purposes of the town, impact the MD&A consistency. Essentially, there'll be more prescriptive information that needs to be included in the management disclosure, and so they do provide an example in the GASB statement, and again, we will work with management to ensure that we're all of the necessary information is included. There's no component units of the town, so that part doesn't apply here. And then the budgetary comparison information being included as RSI rather than as part of the basic financial statements, the town already adheres to that. So we anticipate very minimal impact. And GASB 104 is also effective for fiscal '26. And this just requires that there be separate disclosures for different types of assets, including the leased assets, ready-use assets, subscription-based information technology agreements, and assets held for sale within the disclosures. And then if there's any questions or feedback.
I remember it was like GASB 34 or GASB. You probably remember when it.
I do.
Yeah, gotta wake up, everybody.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Jesse, you get the pleasure of going first.
Ooh. Good evening.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for working with the town. Appreciate your willingness to come out and make this presentation. I will just say, just so everyone in the community knows, we did just get this tonight, so I didn't really have a chance to go through the numbers. So I'm just going to kind of rely upon some of the things that you said in your presentation. And the one big noticeable thing for me is the fact that you gave the town an unmodified review with no deficiencies. You know, I think that's very, very important, particularly because we have a changing of a guard. We have a new administration coming in. So knowing that the incoming team doesn't have necessarily any concerns to worry about, you know, it will allow them to focus on other areas and move forward. I did try to do a little due diligence and came together with two very simple questions, softballs. I'm sure you'll knock it out of the park. As you were going through, and again, you can say no to this, that's fine, did you notice any anomalies that might not have been, you know, in violation of any standards or regulations, but just anything that just kind of looked odd or weird in going through the records?
Nothing that appeared to be odd or weird. I think we stand by the fact that the town did earn that unmodified opinion with no findings. The only thing that came to our attention were the three that were noted, the teacher summer pay accrual, which the town did end up accruing for, as well as the 2 past adjustments, which did not materially misstate the financial statements or mislead the users. But those were the only 3 things that popped up during our review. And I wouldn't say that there was anything else that was odd or unusual. It was actually a pleasure to work with Tim and his team, so.
Well, he is pro. It's not his first rodeo. The only other question I guess I had is because you did give a list of some of the new standards that are coming down.
Yes.
And again, I know you weren't necessarily looking at the records with those in mind, but would there be anything that maybe you could kind of just let us know in advance? Anything that you noticed that might not fall within compliance of the standards coming down, or are we just in good shape, at least for the foreseeable future?
I think in the short term, I think the one that's going to be that's going to require a little bit of legwork is definitely going to be the compensated absences, just ensuring that the calculations are in compliance with the new standard. Sometimes what's missed with comp abs is the fringe benefits are not included in the estimate. And the parental leave is probably not taken into account once it's known that there will be parental leave, things of that nature. And they're sort of widening the scope there on what's included in the estimate. But I don't think that there's anything that there's concern over. I think it's just ensuring the compliance with the standard.
And it's just going to require just kind of taking a few steps back, adding the new layers in.
Yes. Yep. And it won't be nearly as much work as the implementation of leases or SBITAs, I hope.
That's great. I wish I could ask you some more substantive questions, but I'm going to defer to the two accountants that are on the board, so I'll just sit back and listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Jonathan.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Stephanie, for your presentation. Just have a quick question around, as far as the three that were noted, so how does that work? So you note them and then we go and make the corrections, or is that just?
So in terms of the summer teachers' pay accrual, the bulk of it was accrued. It was just that there were, from the schedule that we were provided, it appeared that there was one that was not accrued. And then Tim reviewed and concurred, and therefore the adjustment was made to the trial balance and included. In terms of the other receivables, the other receivables, the part of the work as for switching to new auditors is that we do have to perform procedures over the 2023 balances. So that's where the 2023 understatement, but again, that flushes itself out once you get through 2024. Last year's accrual gets collected, so not anything that would mislead the users or need to be recorded. And then the opioid settlements, that was something that, we're just noticing in a lot of municipalities. The information is available on the mass.gov website, but the receipts in any given year are so minimal that a lot of municipalities are not looking, what are we going to receive in the next 10 years? And there's only 2 contracts that are signed. So sometimes that one does poke out and we sort of, make sure we look for that one to see if they're receivable. But again, not material to the financial statements and therefore did not need to be recorded to the trial balance. Again, because it wasn't going to mislead the users of the financial statements. Yep.
Go ahead, Tim.
So going back to the summer teachers' pay accrual, just to expand on that a little bit. So this is something we've been doing since 30 years I've been here. The way it works is every year, Human Resources, it's actually done well before year end, finds out from all the teachers who wants their lump sum before they leave last day of school, who's going to spread out their 5 weeks and get their biweekly check over the summer. Once she has that list, then she's able to prepare a spreadsheet that lays out the 5 weeks and how that's going to fall into our year-end closing. Typically, one of those weeks is already part of accounts payable. So it's usually 4 weeks, and we've consistently been on target all these years. For whatever reason, this year, we only accrued 3 weeks. There was some confusion on the second week. So first week was accounts payable, second week it got missed, week 3, 4, and 5 were in the accrual. As soon as we found out, we had a meeting, Aaron, myself, town manager, and the school business manager. We met downstairs, we discussed it, how'd this happen, and what do we need to do to make sure it doesn't happen again. We put a procedure in place to make sure this wouldn't happen again.
Great, thank you. Well, that's very helpful. I think it's just good for, we can, as a board, we hear these and some of us understand better than others, but also the public as well. I mean, we're talking a lot of, municipal finance is much different than what a lot of people are encounter in their day-to-day life. So it's just helpful for people to understand what those 3 were since you brought them up. So I appreciate that. One thing I often ask when the auditors come in is to really explain kind of what is an audit, because I think a lot of people have different perceptions of what an audit is. And, if you could just give like a high-level summary of what an audit is so people understand what you're actually doing here, so.
Sure. So we are checking to ensure that the town is complying with all GASB standards in terms of their reporting of the financial statements, as well as the single audit report, as well as doing on a test basis, ensuring that transactions are recorded in accordance with the town's policies. So we do checks over the internal control procedures by selecting a single transaction and following it through from start to finish. Once we have, comfort level over the fact that the internal control procedures are operating as they are intended to, then we perform transaction testing over some of the more significant balances or the higher risk ones. And essentially what we're doing is ensuring that the amounts that are reported in the financial statements align with the underlying schedules that are being provided by the town, as well as the first source support that's being retained by the town. With regards to the single audit, we're ensuring that the the federal funding is being used with the intent that the government is hoping that it will be. And there's a compliance supplement that's issued by the OMB, and that is, it spells out exactly what we're supposed to do over the financial awards to ensure that they're being used appropriately, as well as reported appropriately on the schedule of expenditures of the financial awards.
Great, thank you. No, that's very helpful. So I think the only other question I have is just more of, our next agenda item is to approve, a contract for a new town manager, and Tim is also, going to be retiring this year as well. And so we've had long time stability in, especially with Tim being here for so long and kind of managing this. As a board, we're moving into kind of, a new way of doing things. And, so one of the questions I have is like, what's your advice to us as we start to work with a new town manager? And is it common for us, like, to reach out during the period of the year to make sure we're on track with, just those kind of things, just to help us in guiding them? We're hiring someone who's very capable, but just to help us kind of manage so that we end up with the same results next year.
Absolutely, yeah. I think one of the things that distinguishes CLA is that we view this mostly as a partnership. Yes, we are engaged to remain independent, and we do have to report on the financial statements for what we see, but we want to work with you because you're providing a service to your townspeople. So we view this as a partnership. We want to help you get to where it's going. We don't come in at the end and just say, gotcha, you did this. That is not our intent. So at any point during the year, we do want you to reach out with questions. We encourage it. And I apologize if anyone's a lawyer. We don't charge you every time you email us or you call us or anything like that. It's all included as part of your contract that we are at your disposal 100% of the time. So to answer your question, yes, please do reach out with questions, especially if there's something that you haven't encountered before. It's always great to do your own research, but it's also great to make us aware of it so we know what to look out for, as well as get our opinion on proper treatment. We can't advise you on how to treat it, but we can point you in the right direction of the research that you'll need, or other towns that have run into similar situations.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's all I have. Thanks. Thanks, Dave.
Jeff?
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. That was actually very helpful, I think, for people to go through that PowerPoint presentation. It made it things they can get that are not always clear, maybe understandable a little bit. So I just had a few questions, comments. We have a clean opinion, which is great, but that doesn't necessarily speak to the overall financial condition of the town itself, right? So do you have any opinions on that?
I mean, the town has very little debt outstanding, which is fantastic. Yeah. You haven't taken out new debt in a while, so that speaks to, the tax levies and everything of that nature, and the use of the the federal funding to support some of the larger construction projects that you do have going on. But overall, I think that the town is comparable to other municipalities of the similar size.
No, I mean, one of the slides you had up there was with the stabilization funds and so forth. That,
Absolutely.
To me, that's kind of a sign of a healthy
Absolutely.
community.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
A couple of questions on, just to follow up on some of those adjustments that were passed on.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have any budget implications for us? I know they don't
no.
for the financial statements, but do they impact the budget at all?
Well, the opioid, so the only one that would potentially is the opioid receivable. However, that's for a specific purpose.
Right.
So it's not like you could budget
What was
that
the other one? Was it the sewer department?
Right, but that was as of June 30th, 2023. The receivable
okay.
was
All right.
understated, so it flushed itself out by the time we got to 2024. So it's stated accurately as of year end.
Okay, great.
So, Dave, I'm sorry, Jeff, the sewer bills are not sent, they're not like the tax bills where they're, they do cover a certain period, but there's not a clean cutoff. So the spring billing for sewer are what? I think the bills go out maybe cover through April or May. So this receivable is really that last period between the last bill and June 30. Now, it's been consistently, I don't want to use the word wrong, but it's been done consistently year after year after year, and that short period has not been accrued as a receivable. So they came in and said, well, it really should have been, beginning of year should have had a receivable, end of year receivable for 2024. It's really kind of a wash, but now we're on track. So going to 6/30/25, they'll always have to have that receivable in order to be consistent.
Got it.
So that doesn't really have an impact on the enterprise fund. Like you said, the opioid is a restricted amount of use. So yes, if we booked the receivable, it would have been restricted revenue, and it really wouldn't affect free cash, general fund, or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you for that. On the single audit, will that still be required now that we've kind of eaten through our ARPA funding?
So the threshold for requirement of a single audit has moved from $750,000 to $1 million effective for fiscal 25. I'm living in multiple fiscal years. So it will depend on whether or not your total expenditures of federal awards exceed $1 million, whether or not you will need a single audit. The program that was chosen, the ARPA funding, that was due to the fact that it was the largest program. You did not qualify for any Type A programs, as they were below the $750,000 threshold. But it was just the largest Type B program. To avoid undue stress on Tim to test 6 programs to make up that amount, we chose to test the ARPA one. So if there are fewer expenditures on the ARPA funds in this fiscal year, then no, you won't need a single audit over that. Okay. But it will depend. At this time, I can't say either way definitively. It will depend on whether or not you exceed the $1 million threshold overall.
Okay, because we hadn't had that for a long time. I think it wasn't, when we got ARPA, wasn't it the first?
The CARES Act trigger that?
Yeah, that's right.
That was probably the first
Pre-COVID,
one.
we hadn't had a single audit in a number of years.
Right, okay, all right. Were there any internal control findings that were notable to you?
We did not note any deviances from the internal control procedures that were prescribed by the town. We noted that they were all in compliance during the transaction walkthroughs.
Okay. And the audit covers the entire town finances. Do you look at the schools at all separately?
We don't.
Particularly the revolving funds.
Yes, so we did look at them. They were audited as part of the non-major governmental activities, like sort of the aggregate column. We do perform transaction testing and fluctuation testing over the revenues and expenses, but there's always a level of unpredictability that we can incorporate into every audit, and if that's an area that the board has concern over, that can definitely be worked into the unpredictability of the audit. But we did look at them in the aggregate,
Yeah,
not
the reason I was
individually.
asking is sometimes there's a lot of, money coming in from parents, families, or whatever that,
Absolutely.
and just, that we have some kind of, some comfort level with that those funds are being handled properly so that there's no concerns and no surprises.
With the student activity
Yeah.
funds, yeah. There's also agreed upon procedures that are put out by the state where you can engage for an entire agreed upon procedures. It's not an audit, it is a test engagement where all we look at are the student activity funds and how they're recording and reconciling the bank statements and where the money's being put and being spent on. That is something that can be performed as well.
So at present, DESI only requires the student activities to have an outside audit once every 3 years. And then the interim 2 years are an internal audit. So I believe this is an internal audit year, and Harrison, the business manager, is performing that himself.
Okay, great. That's really all the questions I had. I think, I feel pretty good about where the state of the town is financially, so, great, thank you.
Thank you. Norman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for the overview. Question is something that caught my ear, Tim. Yeah, you mentioned this audit has been more thorough than over the years. And what examples was more thorough?
It's just the amount of time and the amount of people that were here. That's what I'm really referring to. I'm not saying that Markham didn't look at, similar number of transactions and things like that. And plus, they'd been here, I don't know, 10, 15 years. So they were very familiar with our internal controls. And so, I think it was probably, even though they decided to move on, it was probably a good idea for us, maybe we could have made that decision too.
Yeah.
It's after a certain number of years, it's probably good to get a fresh firm in to take a new look at how we're doing things. But for me, it was refreshing to have people here doing work, asking questions, and making us, think about things.
So change was good, essentially, new resources. Okay, good. So Stephanie, you just mentioned we're in a good financial position. And that is based on the methodology that Tim and Jim worked together over the number of years, the accounting and financial methodology, which is key. Any recommendations for changing that methodology? I mean, it's working. We don't want to open a hood, but any other changes or recommendations you would provide?
I think for it was a pleasure to work with the town of Sutton. When we asked for the internal control procedures, Tim had one ready to go for the financial statement side, one ready to go for the single audit side. Right. That is not something you see at every municipality. So I do want to commend you for that. That was fantastic. Based on what we looked at, there was nothing that was of concern where we thought that there should be something different. Usually the things that we would recommend is, accepting less cash on hand, and, that's already been taken into account. I just think the one thing that's heavy on everyone's mind is obviously cybersecurity, and there are always grants through the state in order to do cyber assessments and things of that nature, but nothing that came to our attention that was concerning. I think it's just the bad actors are always getting better. That's always front of mind, and that's why we so we have an internal team that just does IT audits for state and local governments. So we always engage, bring them in, and they perform a separate IT audit.
And they did. Is that completed yet?
Yep, it's part. Yep, there's all good.
So not large anomalies or both in cybersecurity and as well as cyber resiliency.
Yep, that is included as part of our audit.
It's always continuous monitoring, because I have a personal relationship with that.
Yeah, yep.
Jesse had a question. It was answered. I had the same question, likewise with Jeff. In terms of comparison, I think we're fine. The other question I have, in the events for the people here in town, we think of GASB, the changes, right? So there's always that the uneasy feel of changes. We do make sure as they implement those changes, we still Sutton will still be in a financial standing, right? It's not going to be it's not going to disrupt our procedures or our standards in any way. So as these GASB standards come home, it's meant for changes that need to be implemented, of accounting standards and like so, but it's not going to like disrupt our standing or anything.
No, it's primarily to bring more consistency in financial reporting and disclosure. So essentially, they're being more prescriptive of what needs to be included in the disclosure so that it's comparable when you look at one town versus another of a similar size. That's why they're giving examples for what needs to be included in certain sections of the management discussion and analysis now. They're including more detail as to what needs to be included in your comp abs, when you assess what needs to be included in there, they're being more prescriptive. It's primarily disclosure based, and it's just for consistency and clarity, and then also comparability.
Okay. The other reason I asked that question, because I think our financial standards were double A plus, right?
Yes.
So sometimes when they change it, the FASB, or they change standards, it's like may bring it up or bring it down. So I just want to make sure we sustain that.
Oh,
rating,
yeah,
right?
no,
So
it shouldn't.
They work towards it, so.
Yeah, yep.
You mentioned the OMB, right, for the audit, so when there's a grant, it gets audited. Right, that is as well for the schools, right? So in other words, if they're spending funds, right, and that audit would detail, like, there could be an anomaly saying, this funding was meant for X, but we found out it was used for Y, right? So in that audit, that covers that, those practices cover that as well.
So,
Fair to say, in school budget.
So the expenses that were incurred by the school using federal awards, those are included on the CFA,
Okay.
Which is part of the single audit. However, we did not select a school program for testing in the current year. We did do follow-up on the two findings from the prior year's single audit and did not note that they were repeat in the current year.
So it only covers federal, not state?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yep. The single audit only covers the
Very good.
federal expenditures. Yep.
That's it. I mean, I'm glad to hear what we heard today, right? So, I mean, I'm sure you've seen out there other towns. I've done my research, past 2 months, probably share it in our new business. But, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you, both of you, as well, too, and Jim. Mr. Chairman, that is it. Thank you very much.
Terrific. Thank you. Stephanie, thank you. That was a great presentation.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the opportunity to work with the town. We really did enjoy this experience, and Tim and his team were fantastic to work with, so thank you.
And, we do this every year, but congratulations really should go out to Tim for, really an excellent result here, like we are sort of accustomed to having. So, really, truthfully, any questions that I have been asked around the table, so just a couple of follow-up kind of comments. Tim, you got to that, and we had a brief conversation before the meeting tonight that changing auditors every now and then is actually a good idea, just the idea that the approaches are different, just the things you might look at, that just a fresh set of eyes is really helpful. So the first thing that I do in any year is take a look at, kind of management reports, and you're really telling us that there's nothing there to see. So a clean set of books is a good thing. So, that's really, I guess, the only message that we need to get across to people. There's been some questions about the health of the town, although I think your primary function really isn't about those kinds of things. It's really about whether or not the financial statements themselves are stated fairly. We've gotten to that. But whatever measures we can make of the financial health that you're able to opine on, so far you've been telling us good things about that. So,
Right.
I wish I could have more things. Oh, I know. There was one thing about the schools. Tim, this is for you. I recall a number of years ago, there were some concerns about internal control type things over some of those kind of funds over at the school, which I think you sort of worked with the school to implement better control policies over there. Is that, am I remembering that correctly?
Well, actually, all that credit should go to Harrison McKinley. When he started investigating and looking around and digging into files and things, he noted things that weren't being done timely. That was probably the biggest one, was just, money not being turned over on a timely basis, maybe some reporting not done timely, but he's addressed all the issues over at the school and implemented policies over there. So, I mean,
I knew it
more of a
was a
question.
Harrison.
It's really, that's his baby over there, and he's doing a great job.
And I think, thank you for that, and I think that you've heard it from several members here tonight. You know, the big concern is really, we know we've got changes coming, so, you know, your sort of work going out the door is to work with new folks as they come in and make sure that they understand all of the processes and procedures that are in place so that we can repeat this as we move forward. So, you know, I think when you have a history of doing things the right way, it tends to carry on. So I think with a good hire and with a little bit of mentoring, I feel confident that we'll be in the same place next year. So that's all I have. I really appreciate you coming out and making an in-person presentation and a really good presentation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim. Thank you. All right, next up, we have an approval, and we need to sign the contract for our new town manager, Austin Siganowitz. So each of us have in our packets a copy of the contract that Austin himself has already signed. And his contract is basically a public document. So I thought it made sense if I just kind of hit the high spots for the public.
It's fine.
And we kind of talk about it from there. So the position was posted publicly at $190,000 salary, plus or minus, depending on qualifications. We settled with Austin at $180,000. So I think the minutes from that meeting are going to be public anyway. We all talked as a board before we had selected a candidate, you know, about where we were comfortable being with that number. And, you know, Austin himself really didn't have any concerns about that number, so it's kind of easy to get to. We are not at this point offering a 457 contribution, which was currently the case under Jim's contract. So approximately, if my numbers are right, there's about a $36,000 difference between where we would have been with Jim and where we're going to be in this contract for the town. Is that what you got? I figured you would have done it. So
Yes.
In addition to that, we're going to offer, or the contract calls for 20 days vacation for Austin. There is only a 1-week carryover. So I think under Jim's contract, there was essentially unlimited carryover. This contract, that's not allowed. There's only going to be the 1 week. So once he gets to that 1-week carryover, at that point, it's kind of use it or lose it. There is also going to be a $400 a month stipend for an automobile rather than having him actually have a car. No comments. And really, the only other thing I wanted to mention, which is not, it's more about this board, I think, than anything else, that we did decide that we want to have a different process in place for performing an annual evaluation of the town manager. So Jim's contract called for an annual evaluation. I know myself, I've complained about the form that we used for all the years that I've been on the board, but we used this opportunity, the board used this opportunity to actually put in place at least the outline of a different way to do it. So first of all, I'd like to mention Aaron Shinapi, who actually sort of suggested what I think is going to be the process. I'll explain that in a sec. But we've talked about a 360-degree assessment, which essentially uses feedback from internal staff, department heads, that kind of thing, in an anonymous way, so that, you know, one of the complaints that Jeff and I had before we took it to the whole board, and I think we got back from the board, was that, you know, we're not in the building all the time, so we're not really, you know, so privy to all the things that go on. So allowing the board to get feedback from the employees here, I thought was a really big improvement to the process that was here. It really is going to require goal setting in a way that is going to drive performance of the town manager to be able to use that as part of the evaluation. Now, what we didn't want to do is write all that in the contract itself. So the new board is going to have to create a new policy that's going to have to contain the particulars, the actual structure of how the assessment's going to actually work, which I assume, you'll probably do maybe in conjunction with the town manager. I won't be around. That's up for the new board. But I wanted to mention it because I really felt like it was a kind of significant change to the way we have done it up till now. And I think that night there was a lot of positive feedback around, how that might go. So
I think that's something we'll discuss on our first meeting in June.
all right. So that's really all I wanted to mention. As I said, I really want to thank Austin himself for, really making this a very, low-stress, kind of easy process to get through. And so it went pretty quickly. And the board, I think, put together a package that was really amenable, and I think allows for growth with Austin over time and over the course of new contracts, which I hope he sticks around for. So that was my perspective, and I'd love to hear from everybody else. So.
Mr. Chairman, I think you did a great job with that presentation, and I agree full-heartedly. As I said the night that we made our decision, I really wish we could have had it on camera. I mean, obviously, I know it was a contract and it was confidential. And I want to emphasize something I may not have said last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. We didn't talk about individual candidates. We just talked about this contract and trying to make something that could basically fit whoever was chosen. But as I said, I really wish we could have had the cameras on, because there were points when we had wide gaps in terms of disagreements. But after talking as adults, compromising, we always kind of met in the middle, because we kept going back to the fact we're looking out not for the interest of whoever's getting the contract, but we're looking out for the interests of the town, both in the short term and the long term. And I'm very confident that this is going to be a definite significant step in that direction. We obviously cut back on financials, we got rid of some expenses, and we also added some things through negotiation, I guess, things that we had modified on the fly. But at the end of the day, I think the town is going to be very satisfied with this. And the biggest piece to look forward is, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, we are going to meet, we're going to discuss it, and we're going to come up with a new evaluation process. Because the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that just doesn't work. So we'll have something that works forward. So I'm very excited about where we're going. I'm very excited to get Austin in here. And hopefully I know when the first start date is. But I'm just definitely optimistic and looking forward to it. So.
Yeah, thank you. And can I jump in with one more thing? Two more things, actually. One point that I want to make that we really had a complete agreement amongst ourselves is I should have had pizza at that meeting.
I thought you were buying.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Not too late.
Yeah, it is not too late. You still got a couple of
Chairman.
I did want to talk about start date, though. I neglected to mention start date. So, we were back and forth. When we were discussing this with Austin. His wife is actually due to have a baby shortly before June 1st. So he really, although he doesn't plan to take a lot of time, he wants to take some time, and he really wanted to have that behind him before he started with the town. So we ended up just pushing out the start date to July 1st, which is kind of nice with fiscal years and all that kind of stuff. It dovetails with that, and you get a 3-year contract. I neglected to say that. It's a 3-year term that's coterminous with fiscal years, so it kind of made some sense. But I just wanted to mention that. Jonathan, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. No, I agree with Jesse. This process of putting this together was just, it was just great collaboration, and it's a great way, I think, for this board to kind of, as we're coming to a close, as this year's iteration of the board, and we're going to be, changing. It felt very satisfying to do, to work together and to come to a place of agreement that works for all of us. And it's something that I would really like to continue to replicate as the new board forms. And, that becomes kind of our normal way of working, how we worked in that. There's no reason why we can't have the same type of format working together as a select board. I think it will really help us be able to work through some issues in a much more, impactful, manner. So for me, it was just very satisfying from that. So, and just, I'm looking forward to, Austin's start date and, us being able, and we'll have a new board at the time. And so it's a lot of change and, a lot of change for the town hall. It's a lot of change for us, and we're all going to have to, settle in and work together to get it done. So I'm looking forward to that.
And if I can just add one thing, it really came together for us as a board, but also for Austin. I think it really, turned out to be a 5-person kind of thing. So
Yep.
it was good.
Yep. Thank you.
Jeff?
Thank you. Yeah, so I agree. I mean, that the executive session we had, it was a long one. And just to kind of, I'm not sure if Jesse said, I guess Jesse might have mentioned it, that, there was no discussion regarding the individual candidates themselves. It was, and I mean, that was stressed, and we all kind of adhered to that. But it was just really, let's talk about a contract for the position. Aaron had done a great job in terms of bringing copies of contracts from other town managers just to make sure that we're in the ballpark salary-wise and benefit-wise, and I think we ended up in a good spot that way. We did make some significant changes, I think, to what Jim's contract was. It is certainly, not quite as, well, we're going to save some money on it. I guess a couple of changes that we put in that, I'm not sure if they were in Jim's contract or not, but they were kind of negative things, and hopefully they won't come to pass. There are provisions now that we put in there for, what happens if, in the unlikely case that our town manager becomes under indictment for something or is charged with a felony. The contract clearly spells out that we will suspend town manager without pay. I think that's new. And also just some of the termination, there was a kind of a convoluted formula for severance pay based on, which was probably more appropriate for somebody that's been here for a number of years. But looking at all the other towns, we have a 6-month severance pay, which is in line with most communities. If for some reason the board votes to remove the town manager, there would be a 6-month severance pay provision in there. But outside of that, I'm proud of the board for the work that went into this. I think everyone was open to different ideas, and there was no holding back for sure. So that was good. Everyone got their thoughts out. So I'm comfortable and happy where we ended up.
Great. Thank you. Norman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To extrapolate what Jesse was saying, I think we really rolled up our sleeves. We shared our opinions and thoughts, and we came to a conclusion, right? Resulted in this. So what you all saying, I agree, so I'm not going to repeat it, but I am looking forward to having come in on board. But also, as I think of the town employees, is that they've been working with Jim for like 18 years or more. So that's a big change, right? So you're looking at the style, management style, and and I want to thank the town employees for being on Jim's side and moving forward, because we just had a very good, stellar financial review, right? So those are big shoes to follow on Tim's side. So as Austin comes on board, is just remind the town employees to embrace change. It's not easy, but we're going to embrace and change for the positive, in a sense. So, but again, I really would like to see. You're right. I would really like to see a replay of how we collaborated together, and it would be nice to see that if we have any issues like that, any issues that happen in town that is on the agenda, is like how we collaborated, how we can discuss like that. It was open discussion, right? Respected of each other, listen to thoughts, opinions, reasons why. It was very effective, and the end game is we have a very successful outcome. So thank you, everybody, and as well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I really have nothing to add. We, as I said, we have a contract that's already been signed by Austin, so that is kind of our thing is just to sign it, and I think we need a motion to,
Before I do, I just remembered one thing that I want to put in the record. We worked so hard, we actually killed the clock. The clock actually stopped working when we were done, so I want that in the
oddly
record.
enough, that did happen.
9:15 or something like that.
I think there's some
Trying to
doubt.
send a message, but
I think there's some doubt is if we actually got out at 9:15, or is that just what the broken
Right,
clock said?
well, no, we left at 9:50.
Either way, there was no pizza, so.
Make sure that gets added into the record as well.
For the record, Jeff.
All right, Mr. Chairman, then, that being the case, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to approve and sign the contract for town manager Austin Saganowitz.
Second.
I'll get it.
Second?
Second.
That's a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Jesse Lemanik, aye.
Jonathan Anderson, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
Norman Shopping, aye.
David Hall, aye. It passes unanimously, and I would just like to say that, I feel like we got the right guy. I'm really excited for him to be here, so looking forward to that. Okay. Finally, what's up is approve and sign the spring town meeting warrant. So, Jim,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee had what would have been their last meeting last night, and they had the two citizens petition sponsors come before them. I think it was Brian Sora that's sponsoring one article, and the second one is being sponsored by Brian Stevenson. The committee essentially went over the entire warrant, and ultimately, with the citizens' petitions, because the planning board didn't have their public hearing, it's rescheduled for next Wednesday, the 23rd, I think. They decided to hold off on making a recommendations, awaiting the planning board decision, and then they're going to meet the following Thursday, the 24th, to render their final recommendation on the warrant. But the warrant is the same. It's here if you have any questions. I went through it pretty thoroughly last time, but...
And those two citizens petitions, even though technically the public hearing hasn't happened and the recommendations made, it doesn't really matter to us in terms of just signing it.
Yeah, that's true.
There for town.
And to be honest, I didn't find a whole lot of pushback by the Finance Committee. They were questions on the fringes, but I think a lot of those questions will be addressed in the planning board hearing. So, that's just my thought on the process last night.
I guess my point is it doesn't really matter which way they can vote against them.
Yeah,
but we're still
because
gonna
they're
vote.
still on.
We're going to.
They're still on the warrant. That's correct.
Yeah, if I can just dovetail on that, we're not voting in favor of any of these articles.
Right.
All we're doing is we're just voting that we're going to authorize it so we can have a town meeting.
Yeah. Exactly.
Ultimately, it's going to be up to the people who attend town meeting to bring forth their questions. And hopefully they'll be able to be answered, and then it's going to be town meeting that makes the decision ultimately.
Yep.
So that being said, if nothing's changed,
No.
correct? I have no problem going forward with our process and signing it, making sure that it's effective so we can have a town meeting.
Good plan. Jonathan?
Yeah, I'm in the same mind. I did watch the Finance Committee meeting last night. I did see the presentations of each of the people, and again, of the sponsors. And, again, it's not up to us to decide on each article. We're looking at the whole. So we'll leave it up to the Finance and Warrant Commission to do their part in the planning board. So that people are informed for town meeting. So I'm all set.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm all set. I'm glad to see that the BVT article was kind of cleaned up so that to take out Joe from Milford likes this, so we vote for it.
Yeah, right.
So I'm good with it.
And Dr. Fitzpatrick was fine with having that slimmed down.
Good.
Thank you. Norman?
Mr. Chairman, no, I'm fine. Let's just go through the process and it's down to the vote. I'm all set. Thank you.
Very good. I'm in the same place, so I think we can entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve and sign the spring town meeting warrant.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Take a vote.
Jesse Lemanik, aye.
Jonathan Anderson, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
Norman Shopping, aye.
David Hall, aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. All righty. I believe we are ready for a town manager's update.
Yes, sir. A few updates for the board. The first is Depot Street Bridge closure is expected within the next couple of weeks. There will be some limited one-way closures prior to the full closure. We will be sending out a direct mail information to the residents of Blackstone Street, Ariel Drive, Michael's Way, and Depot Street. We're encouraging the town of Grafton to do similar on their side of the line. The bridge will be closed up to 2 years. On the positive side of this, the state is investing roughly $8.5 million in rehabbing this bridge. It's a town-owned bridge, but the state is coming to task and investing a significant amount. Shortly I'll give an update on the Manchog Bridge, which is planning is almost complete, and that project is close to $13 million of state investment. So. Unfortunately, I've got to do the next one. Tim Harrison's retirement. I received a letter on Tuesday, April 8th, from Tim Harrison informing me that his intention to retire on October 4th, 2025. He stated that his plans is to provide as much assistance as possible to his replacement to ensure a smooth transition, and I will leave that position vacant for Austin Saganowitz to fill. Austin and I have talked briefly, and potentially I will post it for July whenever he's here, and he and maybe Tim will participate in the interviews. But that remains to be seen. But I just want to, obviously I'm retiring as well, but Tim Harrison has served this town for over 30 years, and he is just very intelligent and very wise with the financials, a great partner in the financial aspect of this job, and other aspects, I suppose, too. But he's just a wealth of information and a great person and partner to have involved, and I appreciate Tim's time here and working with me. Matt Stenzel's resignation. On Thursday, April 10th, Matt Stenzel submitted his resignation, effective April 25th, 2025. Matt did a great job as highway superintendent and as the tree warden, and we wish Matt the best in his future endeavors. He's not going far. I think he's going up the street to Millbury. Fire Chief contract, Fire Chief Matt Balsito has signed a new 3-year contract, and he'll continue to serve the town of Sutton Fire Department until June 30th, 2028. So that was a significant negotiations and a positive aspect with Matt. Matt's been a leader in the state in fire department services, and he's entirely deserving of this contract. Carl Licapoli resignation. Carl has resigned from the Sewer Commission effective April 9th, 2025. I don't think that had anything to do with the other resignations, but Carl has served the town as a Board of Selectmen member in the 90s, the town moderator, and currently the Sewer Commission. He's just been a great public servant for the last 35 years, give or take. So, we wish him very well in the future and appreciate his service to the town. Fiber update, the town of Sutton has applied for another Community Compact Municipal Fiber Grant. This grant will allow fiber to connect all the sewer pump stations and save money by replacing the phone connections that currently phone out the superintendent, Donald Bachowski, whenever there's an issue with that pump station. In addition, the town ran fiber to Marion's Camp, and we now have the fiber going to Goddard Lodge. Eventually, we would like to place cameras inside and outside Goddard Lodge for safety. There'll be a sign notice that, it's being recorded and that you're being on camera, but hopefully that'll prevent any issues with guarded lodge, breaking in and so forth, but it'll also provide a sense of security on the parking lot and other parts of Marion's Camp, which is important, not only to the town, but the neighbors that abut it, and, a relief on the police department, too, so they don't have to be down there constantly going through there. So that will happen shortly. And again, the reminder that Springtown meeting is May 12th, 2025 at 7 p.m. at the middle school auditorium.
Excellent. Thank you for the update.
Thanks.
Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, thank you for the update.
Sure.
I did do something I haven't done in a while, just because my dog's getting old. But the other day I did take him out for a walk, and I happened to scan down on Depot Street. They actually had one of the one-lane closures. So do we have any idea when the effective date of the full closure is going to be, or is it still TBA?
It's TBA, but we will do a lot of outreach via social media, cable department, Facebook, and give as much notice. We intend, if we haven't already, we will put the fire department notice sign on probably Blackstone Street and maybe out on 122A. I'm not exactly sure where those signs will go, but to let them know of the upcoming closure of that bridge.
Yeah, because when the Blackstone Street Bridge went down, that was a little different situation in that the bulk of the traffic continue its normal route. Well, now we're going to have the trucks that are going to be accessing those two facilities going through the neighborhood.
Yeah.
More so than they do now accidentally because of GPS.
Yeah.
So I think it really, really behooves us to make sure we are out in front of this, because we're going to impact the lives of everybody up in that neighborhood.
Yeah. No, we Jen has been all over this, but, we will make sure that the public is notified.
And of course, I'd like to thank, I'm going to toot my own horn. I'd like to thank the CMMPO and MassDOT, obviously, for keeping this line item in our TIP plan, just to make sure that it remains a viable project, as with what's going on down in Manchok as well.
Yeah.
So that's coming up soon, so we should get the full presentation, and I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah.
Tim's gone, so bye, Tim. But we'll talk more about Tim's retirement when we get close to that date. Matt, I wish Matt the best of luck. I know he came from Millbury, so maybe for him it's kind of like a homecoming. Hey, I did. I said bye, Tim.
Oh, really?
No, there's no pizza. You got to talk to him.
Not there yet.
Next week.
Next week. Wait a minute.
Well, I don't know, 2 weeks. Well, you keep saying you're going to buy. All right, so yeah, good luck to Matt. Hopefully he does well over there. Do we have a contingency plan for an interim until the new superintendent's hired?
As soon as Matt suffered a loss in his family, so he's been out on bereavement leave for a period of time. So as soon as he's probably coming back tomorrow, and then I'll sit down with Matt. My plan is to have Lyman, the foreman, as the interim, and that's a negotiation that I'll have to have with Lyman. But that's my intention.
Okay. And I'm assuming
for a couple of months until Austin's here.
That was going to be my next question.
Austin will be hiring that next highway superintendent.
Yep, that's appropriate.
Yep.
All right. Congratulations to Chief Belcito. He is truly an asset, and we are blessed to have him. I'm glad that he agreed to sign the contract. I did have one minor question,
Sure.
and that was in terms of the financials. How'd you get that number for his salary? Did you do a survey of the chiefs in the area to determine that number?
No, he made it clear that he would be comfortable, and I think we offered him 150 for the first year, and then I don't know, 2.5%, 3% raises in year 2 and 3. And that's just what he requested, and I felt comfortable giving him that.
Okay, yeah, because just my concern, I know a few years ago, we were significantly underpaying him.
Yeah.
And, he was approached by some of the other towns.
That's correct.
And I know Matt probably doesn't have much in terms of a career left, but I really, really would feel comfortable for the residents if we can have him retiring here.
Yeah,
So if that's a number that he's comfortable with, I'm comfortable with?
Yeah, that's my expectation. I think we've got him till 2028, and that may be the, then the transition to the next in line.
All right. Well, of course, I'm sure if there is any significant discrepancies, we can go back and reassess the contract.
Absolutely.
And possibly deal with that down the road.
Sure.
And Carl, what can you say about Carl? I mean, he's out there with the Mike Chizzies in my mind, and the John Heberts, and the Paul Maynards, the people that gave years and years of their life to this community in multiple capacities. And he is a true gentleman. I enjoyed all the opportunities back when I was a Lion, just to sit down and talk to him, and we went on a couple of road trips together, and he's a true, rare gem, in that he's a true gentleman. So I'm sure his presence will be missed, and hopefully he enjoys his retirement and he maintains good health. But I'm sure, like all of the other ones, they'll be watching us on TV, so I know he's not going to be too far away. And lastly, thank God that we're finally at the end of the road with the fiber.
Yeah.
It's been a long process. Thank you for all that you've done to get us there. And yeah, I'm looking forward to, what do they call it, the eye in the sky or something like that, whenever the cameras are down there, because I know particularly when we decided to open up the beach during the COVID, and there was a lot of really no one down there. There were some incidents, and the police constantly had to respond. So this, having the ability of dispatch to be able to look in, will allow for a more rapid response. And hopefully the people who do engage in activities down there are respectful of the town property and mindful of, well, if they engage in shenanigans, the chief is here. He'll find them. That's all I have.
Here. Thank you. Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jim, for your update.
Sure.
It's good to see the bridge, moving along, and it's going to definitely be an impact to the residents down there. And as far as if you're going down Depot Street from 122A, excuse me, obviously that will be closed. You won't be able to get across there. What will be the detour for?
It'll be Blackstone Street and then coming out the other side of 122A. So we're gonna, and we're working with the town of Grafton. Obviously, it's right on the line. Grafton begins right after the bridge, if you will. So it's they will have impact on their side as well, and hopefully they're getting the word out to their residents at the same time. But right now, I understand the Polyvinyl and those companies down there will use Blackstone Street as their exit onto 122A and then to wherever their ultimate destination is.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I knew this day was coming with Tim.
I know.
And so now that we have a date, obviously we have some little bit of time here, but I mean, October is going to come very quick, and so I think it's good to get this process started. And
I should say that he intends to leave at the beginning of September and take the month of September as vacation time. Hopefully we get the position understanding with the new town manager and post it either as a town accountant or a finance director. We've got two different options. We have discussed making it full-time versus Tim, 3 days a week, or a full day on Tuesday and half day on Wednesday and Thursday, making it a full-time position. But, you have to kind of figure out what the pay is for these positions, and they're difficult positions to find. Maybe one of the retired board members will be willing to serve as just a thought. But
what's the second career?
You get a pension after.
You have your own pizza bar.
We'll throw in pizza too.
Yeah.
I just had to. I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you.
What's the difference between the two positions, like a town accountant?
Well, a town accountant is just, does the books and, obviously works with the auditor and finance director is more involved with every financial operation in the town. Tim oversees the assessor's office, the treasurer collector, the collector's office. Tim works very closely with Lisa Lynch, our town treasurer, making sure everything's reconciled. As well with Donna, the deputy collector, and he's a wealth of knowledge. And the fact is he's trained pretty much all of the treasurers that have come into town since I've been here, starting with Cheryl and then Lisa Trost and Kathy Van Dyne, all of them. They started as, HR/payroll clerks, and they, Tim worked with them to become treasurers and very successful. So that's the finance director. It's a larger role. It's more encompassing, and it's a supervisory role where he oversees a lot of the operations in town. But, right now, we're trying to figure out what that
Where's this
position
gonna
will
be,
be.
and probably-
And how much we have to pay, because finance directors are generally more expensive than
Yeah,
town
imagine.
accountants.
Yep. Okay, that's
Yeah.
very helpful. Thank you. I'd also like to, thank Matt Stenzel for his time in Sutton. This is, it's a big town, land-wise, and lots of roads. So, it's a never-ending trying to keep up with things between the trees and the roads. So I'm sure he won't be getting much of he'll be heading over to Millbury, so it won't be much of a difference. But just thank him for that. And then, just happy that Chief Belcito's staying here for another 3 years. He's just a real asset to the town. He's an asset to the region. I think he kind of defines mutual aid. He's kind of is the definition of that. So I think that just benefits Sutton in so many ways. I'm happy that he's staying on for another 3 years. And then, I'd like to thank Carl for his, service to the town for all those years. I remember particularly as the moderator, and I had a lot of chuckles, glad it wasn't being directed at me, I think, he's one of those longtime residents that, has an impact on people who know him and were impacted by him. So really thank him. So that's all I have. Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Busy week last week.
Yeah. Yes.
So thanks for the info on the Depot Street bridge. It always amazes me how long it takes to put in a new bridge. Although, there was, I think it was a year or two ago, Portland, they have this massive bridge right through the center of the city, and they built a bridge right next to the existing one, and then they replaced the whole thing in a weekend. The entire bridge. They took the old one out, slid the other one in, and
that's a tough act to follow.
So it just
I tend to
amazes me
refer
it
to
takes
the
2
big
years.
dig as a reference point.
Yeah, no, it's just amazing to me. It takes 2 years to do it, but it is what it is. So yeah, Tim's a big loss. There's so much institutional knowledge that he's going to take with him. And you just went through, what is a finance career? He's involved in everything. And to think he does it on a full day Tuesday and 2 half days is...
When I started here, he worked just Tuesday from 7 a.m. bright and early until after the board meeting was done.
Yeah.
And he got everything done.
Yeah.
I mean, because he's a worker. He sits at his desk and he goes nonstop.
And, just if the presentation tonight we saw about the financials, municipal accounting is very difficult. So it's going to be a hard position to fill, but it's hard for people even to understand it. The terminology is, certainly not intuitive. So that's going to be a tough position. So hopefully we can do that, and hopefully Tim's not too far away.
Yeah.
And, I wish Matt Stenzel the best. He did a great job for us over the years. And glad to see Chief Belcito. I think everyone kind of saw last 2 meetings ago when he came in, all the things that he's involved with in the town. So I'm glad to see he's saying. Carl's resignation is... That's another big one. Carl, for me personally, Carl was one that I had the phone call from him 16 years ago to get on the finance committee, and he's been kind of a mentor through the years. He encouraged me to run for this board, and he was very instrumental in just helping me personally.
You still like him after all that, huh?
I know. So, he's going to be missed. And, town meetings were, no one runs a town meeting like
Very
Carl.
colorful.
Yeah. Especially if there's a heckler in the audience, That was There's always an adventure and must see. So, yeah, we wish him well in the future, of course, but, we're going to miss him. And I know I will personally. And that's really all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Norman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jim, for the update.
Sure.
We spent a lot of time with Dee, but I have no further questions. They were pretty much addressed. But do you mind if I ask a separate question of another project in town?
Sure.
8 Lots Road.
What lot?
8 Lots Road?
Yes.
It seems between the two lakes or two ponds, there's, I think it'd be building a conduit underneath, a culvert. Because the signs are all ready there to shut down the road. So
Is that a state project that they're going to
It
do?
is,
Because
so-
it's not, I recall, on the town's.
No.
Okay.
It looks like they're going to shut down the road on the,
They are shutting it down.
they're preparing to shut it down. so-
I'll look into that and get
Yeah.
back to you at the next.
there hasn't been any information
Yeah,
about
there's
it.
no communication at all. so
Yeah,
I'm just wondering.
I'll get in touch with the
Yeah.
state.
I mean, I'm extrapolating from the statement here, but I mean, it's just, it
Yeah,
just
no,
begs the
no,
question,
we-
is
we-
this?
yeah,
there's no
I'll look into
communication,
that, yeah.
Because I think what's going to happen, they're going to reroute the traffic, and maybe in Hutchinson, right? So just a heads up with that. That's what it looks like where the placards are, so. But
I'll let you know prior to the next meeting.
very good, thank you. Tim Harrison's retirement, there was a big shoes to fill. Really big shoes to fill. Great methodology. I am not a financial guy or an accounting guy, but the way he explains it is I'm able to consume his answers. Also, but perhaps my questions were not that formulated in a sense, but his answers are really, really concrete. Which begs the question, looking at his replacement, will he be part of the interviewing process, interviewing prospective candidates?
It's not my decision, it'll be Austin's decision, but I would recommend that Austin sits with Tim and have Tim go through the resumes and even sit in, because Tim knows what's needed, and
Yes.
he can ask the questions that get to the heart of the matter of accountant or a finance director. I would bring Tim in.
Hence my question, right, is that he could ask the question assumptions that narrow down to the needs of the town's accounting requirements. So, okay, very good.
Yeah.
Matt Stansel, as well as his organization, thank you for his service. It won't be far away. However, I have to say, the town of Sutton's snow clearing was always up to par. The only concern I always had is he always put more salt than he needed sometimes, so I had to probably wash the car more often than I had to. But he did a great job, right? I met him only 2-3 times. It was always a pleasure meeting with him, and always answered my questions to the best of his capabilities, abilities, but I wish him well. Fire Chief, listen, this gentleman here has a very stellar reputation, right? And he has earned that reputation. And so I'm glad to see he's going to be here for the next 3 years. I think Chief Balsito has a very, very good vision for the town's needs. He really explained to that. He really understands that. We have an essential service requirement that can't be a disservice. He's looking at the town needs in the future, so he's going to be a great asset to the town, and happy that we can lock him down for another 3 years.
Yeah.
Carl, I never met Carl, but from the sounds of it, eventually perhaps I will, but I wish him well in his retirement and his service to the town and in multiple capacities he served in. The fiber optic is always good to see as well, too, so at least we'd be up to par with that, and it's good to see what they have savings in that, around that. So, but that's it, Mr. Chairman, but thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm with you. We've talked a lot about the Depot Street Bridge, so the communication piece, all of that, I think. But I'm glad you mentioned CMMPO and getting funding for these things is so critical. Think about, you really couldn't do these projects without that kind of funding, so
Right.
Good to see that. There's been so much said about Tim. I've always admired kind of the relationship that you guys developed over the years and were able to, really play off each other, work together to develop a really sound framework for the finances of the town over all these years. And, you think about the progress that we made from where we were with free cash back then to where we are now, and that's a testament to the two of you. Jeff mentioned the volume of work that Tim does, and that has always amazed me how much he gets done in the short period of time that he's here. But that's a problem to deal with, right? Because now you're going to have somebody that you just can't expect somebody else to do the amount of work that he did. The other sort of hidden thing with Tim is he owns his own CPA practice that focuses on municipal finance. So, all that stuff you saw out there and the new pronouncements and that kind of thing, he does that for a living. So when those things need to be applied here, he's a step ahead of the game because he is. So, so that's going to be a big deal to replace Tim. But I appreciate that. I appreciate that you're sort of in discussions with Austin about timing for this. But that the decision about who the replacement is, that'll be Austin's decision as it should be. So
yeah.
Matt. Matt's a fun guy to work with. So interesting. Millbury, Sutton, back to Millbury, but. I always think
he comes back to Sutton someday.
It could happen, I always think about that job is another job that everyone wants to know when their street's going to get paved. It's kind of a tough job. I do know, though, more seriously, I know he's working on some pavement plans, some big sort of things that he's trying to.
Yeah, obviously, he's.
Yeah, he's
had the loss of his father, so but hopefully when he comes back tomorrow, because I'm thinking, okay, I know he's lined up Indus to do 122A from the Millbury line to the Grafton line, and part of Boston Road, the bad part of Boston Road. So I just got to get where that lies right now. I think he's already planning on Indus for the month of June, but. It's now I have to worry about, okay, what's going on with this project? Because otherwise I just, leave it to him and he would get it done. So.
Yeah, the last time you and I talked about it, I know that he was planning his way through when the funding was available.
Yep.
And, so. But I'm sure we'll work it out. So.
Yep.
And I appreciate all the comments that have been made about Chief Belcito. You can say it better than anybody, the level of professionalism that he brings to the job. I've always felt like this was a guy that could be anywhere that he wanted to be in that profession. He didn't have to be here. He could be at the state. He really could call his shots. So we're pretty lucky to have the guy. Recently, I had a chance to work with him just, through the police chief selection process. And I really hadn't worked with him like one-on-one like that, and it was great to just watch him work at that level. So I too am really glad to know that he's going to be around for a little bit of time. So, and Jesse, you said a lot of things about Carl that all true. You said 35 years. I swear, in my mind, it was longer than that.
I'm sure it is, because I'm thinking my career is but he was probably a member of the board in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he was on any other committee prior to that, so.
I actually went back into old records one time, and all of the guys back there that were so involved in the formation of the town in those days, they all worked on multiple committees at the same time, and Carl was one of them. There was something in the water, let's say, back in those days, because there was a whole generation of people that just committed themselves. Look at Carl. He's really committed his whole life to serving the town of Sutton. So, and he's not even from here. But you wouldn't know it to talk to the guy. You would think he was a lifelong kind of guy. So you mentioned some names that you might consider him with Mike Chizzy and John Hebert and Paul Maynard and other folks like that. And I totally see him exactly in that, even if they didn't always get along. But they definitely had the best interests of the town in mind as they did all of these things. So Carl is actually a founding member of the Lions Club that exists today, so he was a charter member. So, all aspects of his life were dedicated to trying to make this a better place, and he was very successful doing that. So we owe him a great thank you. So I appreciate that you put that on our agenda tonight, because we needed to take the time to say that. So. And then quickly moving on to fiber. My only comment about fiber is every time you think you're done with fiber, there's more fiber to be done. So maybe that's just life. And
Yeah, right now,
There's something
we've
else
got
to
a
do.
redundant loop throughout the town. Wilkes is covered, all the major town facilities are covered. We're looking to cover even the Sutton Housing Authority, the Wilkes Fire is covered. They now have internet, they have, we're going to we're going to give them phones and take that bill off the fire department. So there are cost savings with the fiber, but we're now beyond laying the fiber, and now we're looking at adding, other services that will relieve some budget pressures on these.
Yeah, that was not a complaint, right? Fiber is an upgrade in service, so I'm just saying, it's just funny. You think every time we talk about it, it's going to be done, this is the thing, and then something else comes up, so it is what it is. But thank you for the update, and I think we're ready to move on to announcements, Select Board Roundtable, correspondence, and business topics.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just got a couple real quick. I have the food pantry list, and I love the format. This is excellent, nice and clean. The food pantry is looking for sugar. They prefer to get the sugar that's in the plastic containers as opposed to the bags. Kids cereal. Kids like the fruity stuff, but we know fruity stuff is not always good for the kids, so just kind of keep that in mind. Boxes of rice pilaf, barbecue sauce, ketchup, and mustard. Grilling season's coming after all. Second, I'd just like to let the community know that we had our first Memorial Day parade meeting. Several people who are involved. We met up here in the Selectmen's Room, and of course, we're looking forward to bringing forward the annual event as we have done for many, many, many years successfully. Nothing, if I recall, is going to be significantly different. So if you're used to seeing the band and you're used to seeing the Boy Scouts and you're used to seeing the veterans and everyone else, we will bring forth our best effort to make a good parade. And of course, Mother Nature will cooperate. There's no negotiation there. I would, of course, like to extend special thanks to Debbie, Pam, and Christine, because truth be told, the Memorial Day Parade, like so many things in Town Hall, could not function without their involvement. So thank you all in advance, and I will thank you again, and probably thank you again. I'd also like to make a significant announcement, and this is coming from the Legionnaires. As many people in the community know, I am a member of the Legion family. I am not a veteran. I am a son of the American Legion, but we operate with 4 entities as one unit. And the Legionnaires, who are the veterans, have made a decision that in the morning before the parade, when we're going around to the cemeteries, this year we shall once again read all of the names at all of the stops. So I just want the community to be aware, the list does not get shorter. So what this means is that as we post the estimated times, the times are just estimates, and we're going to do our best to make sure we make our rounds. But we'll probably be in the same spots as we always are around the same time. So I know we had some complaints last year, and the veterans heard it, so we're going to do our best to make sure that every man and woman who served and is interred at peace in our cemeteries in Sutton, their names will be read. So hopefully the town will be appreciative of that. And that being said, I need 2 selectmen that are going to come on the bus in the morning, because I can't read all the names. I'm going to need some help. Hint, 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 because I know they are not going to be around. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, thank you. Jonathan?
Thank you. So the only thing I have is that I went to a meeting last week where the state auditor, Diana DeZiglio, spoke, and she talked a lot about her audit of the legislature, or the lack thereof, and kind of lack of transparency. But I also got a few moments with her at the end to discuss some of the findings she had around the unfunded mandate. So obviously couldn't get too much detail about it, but she agreed that she would talk to us about like what to do. And what she said was that she feels that both sides have weaponized the situation, and she wants us to kind of think about, if we're going to at some point consider something like this, then we really need to think through both sides, and she'd be happy to walk us through that conversation. So it was, a quick, brief conversation, but I felt it was worth the while to travel during rush hour through Boston. And I'm glad I did, because I think she'd be a great resource for us to kind of think through our options on this issue as we kind of go through our own process over this next year. So just wanted to point that out. That's all I have.
Very good, thank you. Jeff?
Good, thank you for doing that, though. It's a complicated issue, and, I'm glad you're on top of it, so.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty complicated, and I think there's a lot to think about.
Yeah, sure is.
Yep.
Is it?
All set.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to share an observation that throughout doing the YouTubing and seeing like the town managers and the like, and doing research and coming across my research is at times, jaw-dropping, and, we just had an overview of our auditing today. In proclamation, it was indicated that we are good financially sound in a sense, very little debt. And that was good methodology and practices and the needs and wants of the towns, and focusing on key needs versus wants. And I just want to share with you, and I just came across this, I just want to share with you some of the gaps. It was just jaw-dropping in a sense. If you look, and I won't name the towns, I'll protect the innocents, but like towns like the same size as Sutton would be like $2.6 million budget gap, $3.5 million budget gap, $1.8 million, $4 million, $6 million, and these are not large towns. 3 million, 2.5 million, 2.7, and all talking about what they're doing, Proposition 2.5, and it just reminds me that, we're fortunate here that we're not facing such an issue. And, personally, I voted with my feet, moving to only 10 miles east, as I recall, and I saved like X amount of money. And, it was funny because I always thought that Massachusetts was Taxachusetts, but, I actually saved, ironically, and I actually, like I mentioned, voted for my feet from Rhode Island. And we used to joke around, there's Rhode Island-style calamari, but there's also Rhode Island-style taxes, right? So I'm glad we're not seeing that here in this town. And I just want to share that observation that we're fortunate. We're not, in these predicaments. And this is a fraction. This is just, not even 20 towns. Not even 20 towns out of like the many that we have in the state. So let's keep that motive going, keep it continuing, put the needs that are key for us over wants, and we're going to be in good condition. But I just want to share the observation over the past few weeks, looking at the research I did and the towns, the budget, the gaps. So let's keep it going. But thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's it. That's the only observation I want to share. Thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned YouTube, and I've been doing a lot of YouTubing myself, and I noticed that cats are kind of funny. I also wanted to mention a snowstorm that we had, a kind of a surprise snowstorm this week, and sorry, this is a little more serious. Just
Go ahead.
I just, you might have thought that we were done with plowing for this season and the budget would be set, and we're not. And, obviously the crews went out and had to go out and do another good job of cleaning up the place. And it was weird, sticky snow. So I just wanted to say thanks to them. And, as I get closer to my last couple of meetings here, and I'm thinking about Memorial Day, and unfortunately, I misspoke. My daughter's getting married that weekend, so I will not be around for Memorial Day services, and it just strikes me, I've been on that bus for a long time now, and it is really something when you get to read those names at the cemetery. It's very moving. So although I thought last year worked out fine, I'm kind of glad that they are going back to reading the names, and for our new selectmen after the election, I would definitely suggest that you find a way to take part in those ceremonies every year if you can do that, because it's a good thing.
Is the election May 27th or
The day after Memorial Day.
Oh, okay, the day after Memorial Day. Yeah, so just still looking to be meeting board here.
Yeah, and like I said, unfortunately, I cannot be there, but and that's all I have.
Wedding.
It's just a wedding. Yeah. Yeah. I'll mention that at home.
As he gets through his papers.
Just a wedding.
They serve
You
you
have
papers.
multiple daughters, right?
I do. And it's,
Which one's the favorite?
boy. So there's a joke.
No.
No, the YouTube
go
one
there.
is enough.
Yeah, the YouTube.
All right, that's it. That's all I have. So I think there's one more motion tonight.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
That's a motion and a second.
Jesse Lemanik, aye.
Jonathan Harrison, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
Norman Shopping, aye.
David Hall, aye. Thank you, everybody.
Recording stopped.